By His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. Purport. The living entity is constitutionally pure. Asango Hyayam Purushaha. In the Vedic literature it is said that the soul is always pure and uncontaminated by material attachment. The identification of the body with the soul is due to misunderstanding. As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure original constitutional position. The state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to the material qualities. Since this Shuddha Sattva existence is under the direct action of the internal potency, in this state the activities of material consciousness stop. For example, when iron is put into a fire, it becomes warm, and when red hot, although it is iron, it acts like fire. Similarly, when copper is surcharged with electricity, its action as copper stops. It acts as electricity. Bhagavad Gita 14:26 also confirms that anyone who engages in unadulterated devotional service to the Lord is at once elevated to the position of pure Brahman. Mam Chayo Dibicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Saguna Sumatityaitan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Therefore, Shuddha Sattva, as described in this verse, is the transcendental position which is technically called Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also the name of the person from whom Krishna appears. This verse explains that the pure state is called Vasudeva because in that state Vasudeva, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed without any covering. To execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service without desire to gain material profit by fruitive activities or mental speculation. In pure devotional service, one simply serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a matter of duty, without reason, and without being impeded by material conditions. That is called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva, because in that state, the Supreme Person Krishna is revealed in the heart of the devotee. Srila Jiva Goswami has very nicely described this Vasudeva or Shuddha Sattva in his Bhagavad Sandarbha. He explains that Ashtotara Shata 108 is added to the name of the spiritual master to indicate one who is situated in Shuddha Sattva or the transcendental state of Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva is also used for other purposes. For example, Vasudeva also means one who is everywhere or all-pervading. The sun is also called Vasudeva Shabditam. The word Vasudeva may be utilized for different purposes, but whatever purpose we adopt, Vasudeva means the all-pervading or localized Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 7:19, it is also stated, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Factual realization is to understand Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and surrender unto Him. Vasudeva is the ground wherein Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. When one is free from the contamination of material nature and is situated in pure Krishna consciousness, or in the Vasudeva state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person, is revealed. This state is also called Kaivalya, which means pure consciousness. Jnanam Sattvikam Kaivalyam. When one is situated in pure transcendental knowledge, one is situated in Kaivalya. Therefore, Vasudeva also means Kaivalya, a word which is generally used by impersonalists. Impersonal Kaivalya is not this last stage of realization, but in Krishna consciousness, Kaivalya, when one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one is successful in that pure state by hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Because of the development of knowledge of the science of Krishna, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these activities are under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The action of the internal potency is also described in this verse as apavrita, free from any covering. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, His name, His form, His quality, His paraphernalia, etc., being transcendental or beyond material nature, it is not possible to understand any one of them with the materialistic senses. When the senses are purified by the discharge of pure devotional service, Rishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchite, pure senses can see Krishna without covering. Now, one may inquire that since factually the devotee has the same materially existential body, how is it possible that the same materialistic eyes become purified by devotional service? The example, as stated by Lord Chaitanya, is that devotional service cleanses the mirror of the mind. In a clean mirror, one can see one's face very distinctly. Similarly, simply by cleansing the mirror of the mind, one can have a clear conception of the Supreme Personality of God. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.8 of Hyasa Yogena Yuktena. By executing one's prescribed duties in devotional service, Chetasana Nyagamina, or simply by hearing about God and chanting about Him, if one's mind is always engaged in chanting and hearing and is not allowed to go elsewhere, one can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Lord Chaitanya, by the Bhakti Yoga process, beginning from hearing and chanting, one can cleanse the heart and mind, and thus one can see the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva said that since his heart was always filled with the conception of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of the Supreme Lord's presence within his mind and heart, he was always offering obeisances unto that Supreme Godhead. In other words, Lord Shiva is always in trance, samadhi. The samadhi is not under the control of the devotee, it is under the control of Vasudeva. The entire internal energy of the Supreme Personality of God acts under his order. Of course, the material energy also acts by his order, but his direct will is specifically executed through the spiritual energy. Thus, by his spiritual energy, he reveals himself. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 4:6, Sambhavami Atmamaya. Atmamaya means internal potency. By his sweet will, he reveals himself by his internal potency, being satisfied by the transcendental loving service of the devotee. A devotee never commands, "My dear Lord, please come here so that I can see you." It is not the position of the devotee to command the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come before him or dance before him. There are many so-called devotees who command the Lord to come before them dancing. The Lord, however, is not subject to anyone's command, but if he is satisfied by one's pure devotional service, he reveals himself. Therefore, a meaningful word in this verse is that Hok Saja, for it indicates that that the activities of our material senses will fail to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by the attempt of one's speculative mind, but if one desires, he can subdue all the material actions of his senses. And the Lord, by manifesting his spiritual energy, can reveal himself to the pure devotee. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself to the pure devotee, the devotee has no other duty than to offer him respectful obeisances. The Absolute Truth reveals himself to the devotee in his form. He is not formless. Vasudeva is not formless, for it is stated in this verse that as soon as the Lord reveals himself, the devotee offers his obeisances. Obeisances are offered to a person, not to anything impersonal. One should not accept the Mayavadi interpretation that Vasudeva is impersonal. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prapadyante, one surrenders. One surrenders to a person, not to an impersonal non-duality. Whenever there is a question of surrendering or offering obeisances, there must be an object of surrender or obeisances. Mukham karoti bachalam bhagamanayate grim vikripatam mande shri gurunina taranam. So Srila Prabhupada has in quite a number of places, a few places in his books, and a few more places in lectures, conversations. He has presented 5 stages of realization in Krishna consciousness. So the first stage of understanding, where we all begin, where we're all initially situated, is called pratyaksha. So aksha means eyes, and the eyes symbolize our senses. Just like in conversation, we very often, when someone makes something clear to us, we very often say, "I see." Now that doesn't mean we see what he's talking about with these physical eyes, but it means the conception has become clear, we perceive it. So the eyes represent perception in general. So aksha means eyes or perception, and prati means to bring near. So when the senses, whether eyes or ears or nose or tongue or sense of touch, but whether one or more than one, all five, are in the proximity of their sense objects and we are perceiving those sense objects, then that is called pratyaksha. In other words, it is sense perception. So all living entities start off in their understanding of things on that platform. Pratyaksha, just like when the child comes out of the womb, Prabhupada said a newborn child is less than a monkey. Even a chimpanzee has more intelligence than a newborn child. But this newborn child, as foolish and inexperienced as it may be, has its pratyaksha, its sense perception is going on. As it is in animal forms, even plant forms. Srila Prabhupada said trees can see, trees can certainly feel, therefore he said, because the practice is, in India at least, when you want to brush your teeth, you should get a twig, a gum tree twig, eucalyptus tree twig, or neem tree twig. Just take it, break it. But Prabhupada said you should only do that after the sun has come up, because otherwise you disturb the tree in its sleep. See, if you break this twig off still in darkness, then the tree will be disturbed because the tree has its sense perception. So this is Krishna consciousness, to understand these things. All living entities have pratyaksha. So this pratyaksha is, of course, a material conditioning. Actually, we should understand that the power of sense perception, and this is also brought out by this nice example of the iron and the fire. The power of sense perception is originally spiritual. That is mentioned by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vijaya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyashavagam Dharmam Susukham Kartamaviyam. So you hear this Pratyashavagam, Pratyaksha, he's mentioning perception. But he's not speaking of the perception of one whose consciousness is simply channeled by the gross organs of this body, the physical organs of this body. He's talking about, Prabhupada has used some words, Vasudev Sattva. So he's talking about perception on that platform, the liberated platform, the platform of pure Krishna consciousness, which Lord Shiva is presenting here in this verse. The specific term, apavrita, without any covering. So this pratyaksha which we're experiencing now is spiritual perception, but covered by matter. So it is a extreme limiting of our capacity, our innate capacity for knowledge. I gave the example, it came to mind when I was just in Prague. I was explaining this point also. And I was explaining how in North Korea, which is the last Stalinist government in the world, so they still, in fact, they've always been more extreme than even the Soviet Union ever was in their application of totalitarian communism. So in North Korea, if you buy a radio, then you're required by law, first thing you have to do before you go home with the radio is you have to go to the police station, your local police station. You have to give them the radio. And the police officers will open up the radio, and there's this band, this tuning band. So there's one bona fide radio station in North Korea called Radio Pyongyang. And they will fix the tuner to that frequency. You know, it has a band. You can pick up normally frequencies from all over the place, but they will fix it with, I don't know what, some glue or this, what do you call solder? You know, this, what do you call it in German? Kolbeisen, is that what it's called? I forgot the name. That thing, you know, they, with metal, and they have this hot iron.
You weld things together.
Yeah, but that, you know, those are a little mechanical. No, I don't know the name of it. In English, it's called a solder iron. But you have a loop of this soft metal and this iron kind of metal kind of pencil that you plug in and it heats up, and then you melt the iron on something and it holds it fast. So with some system like that, they fix the tuner to Radio Pyongyang, and then when they close up the radio again, they put a adhesive seal, you know, some kind of official police seal, piece of plasticized paper or something like that with a label, so that if anyone would open the radio again, the seal would be broken. So then people will see and can report. Please, seal on this radio has been broken. And then police will come and arrest the owner of the radio for tampering with it. So in this way, by law, the capacity of that radio to receive so many different frequencies is restricted to one frequency only. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada, in explaining Maya Devi or Durga Devi, he very often says she is the warden. This word warden means the government official who is in charge of a prison. I don't know if there's a feminine form, wardeness, but anyway, she occupies that position in Lord Krishna's arrangement of his energies. So Durga Devi, her service to Krishna is to keep all the, just like in a prison, they're all criminals. So the criminal, the deviant, antisocial, so to speak, living entities who have rebelled against Krishna, they're all locked up by Durga Devi in the material world, Durga Devi. And she, just like the North Korean police, she restricts the frequency of their perception to her band, Radio Maya. And there's no way for the living entity to change that band. All he can do, just like there's radio programs around the clock, and sometimes they change. The station changes its programs from time to time. So there is seemingly something new. You see, first of all, we only listen to the radio at certain times of the day. So if you listen to other times, you're going to hear new things. And then as time goes on, you hear other new things. So like that, Maya Devi, she appears to be providing all kinds of very special perceptions. Therefore, you have, as today, the acolytes of the so-called New Age who speak about new consciousness, see? And higher levels of sensitivity, or whatever they talk about. But this just means they're staying up 12 o'clock at night to listen to Radio Pyongyang instead of at noontime. They hear a different program on the same frequency, something they didn't hear before. They hear the night broadcast to the troops along the Yalu River or whatever. And now from Radio Pyongyang we bring you a special show. Korean opera. And someone's saying, oh, this is new. I did not hear this before. Ah, wonderful. I'm now ascending to higher levels of consciousness. No, you're on the same frequency. It's the same frequency. Just Maya Devi has her variety. But the point is that we always come back to the same situation of identifying with this body. That is material prajaksha. Material prajaksha means perception through the physical organs of this body. So that can be tinkered with a little bit, that can be adjusted, or there's some variety there. One can go up to the subtle body, for instance, from the gross body up to the gross body, Shtula Sharira it's called, Sanskrit, to the Linga Sharira. Even there is a conception called Karana Deha, which is a mystic body. Great rishis who live in the uppermost region of the universe, like Satyaloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka. So when the universe is destroyed at the end of cosmic time, when the universe begins to dissolve and enter back into the body of Mahavishnu, these topmost sages in this universe, they're not destroyed. You may have read in Prabhupada's books that Lord Brahma, then, of course, he gives up his body, but that's in a mystic sense, not in the sense of just someone dying. Sometimes Prabhupada, you'll see, Prabhupada mentions that Brahma at the end gives up his body, but Brahma is the foremost of the mystic yogis. He's number one in the whole universe. So this universe itself is sometimes said to be Brahma's body. The whole universe is sometimes said like that. So naturally, when the universe, it's time for it to be destroyed, then Brahma is going to give up that body. But because he's a mystic yogi, his consciousness is not interrupted by doing that. And so other living entities who have also attained his level by following his path, which is his mystic path, which is called the Brahma Pantha, the mystic path to Brahmaloka. They follow, those mystic yogis follow the Milky Way. Some you may have seen on a very clear night, generally very late, or we should say early in the morning, or just around the time Brahma Muhurta hour is actually beginning, which is an hour and a half before sunrise. I don't know, but here in Sweden, I suppose you should be able to see sometimes the Milky Way. But it's a very beautiful starry band across the heavens. We see in Mayapur a lot, if you get up at the right time. So the mystic yogis, they project themselves and they follow that path to the Brahmaloka. So if one can achieve the level of Lord Brahma, then one can go with Brahma at the time of the dissolution of this universe in the body which is called Karana Deha, the mystic body. And that may remind you of the Karana Jal. Lord Mahavishnu is also called Karana Dakashayi Vishnu, as well as Mahavishnu, because there is this Karana Jal, a Karana ocean, causal ocean. So one who has a Karana body can actually associate with Mahavishnu. The demigods or the great sages on that level, then they assemble themselves around Mahavishnu who's sleeping, and they praise him. And then seemingly follows. So the next stage is called Paroksha. And this is the first thing the new bhaktas and bhaktins learn. What is the first thing we learn when our senses come in contact with this movement? Then immediately we're being told, don't speculate, follow authority. This is the next stage, Paroksha. Again, we find this Aksha in Paroksha. Aksha again means perception or seeing. Paro means through another. In other words, to see through another's eyes. So when one is a new devotee, then that's all one is learning. One is learning, Prabhu, you don't know anything, so just listen to me. I will explain it to you. We actually learn to see everything through the eyes of higher authorities. Ultimately, that means through the eyes of spiritual master. So this is paroksha. This actually means following. This is achar, another word could be used. Achar. Achar means behavior. When one is seeing through the eyes of another, just like I'll give the example. That was arranged by Krishna. Because now I can say if I told Chit Shakti, go see what that noise is. So that means, what does he do? That means that he is engaging in a certain kind of behavior. He's getting up, he's walking out. He's behaving in a certain way on my instruction, going to the kitchen and watching whatever insanity has just happened there. And then he comes back and he reports. Now, that means he saw on my order. It can be understood as he saw through my eyes. In other words, I was the one, you see, I was the one who had the desire. It's my desire to know what happened in the kitchen. But I don't get up and walk there myself. I send him. So he's seeing for me. In other words, he kind of like becomes my eyes or something like that, in that sense. So this is an example of paroksha. Using one's senses on the order of superior, or seeing through the eyes of another. And turning over one's senses to another's command. This is all paroksha. So the people of Free, this organization, they object to this. That they call this some kind of zombie program. But they don't understand that in this Vedic system of Krishna conscious advancement, this paroksha then leads to the next stage, which is called aparoksha, which is equivalent, we may say, shastra shakshush. Aparoksha means not through the eyes of another or directly. One starts to see through the eyes of revealed scripture. This is the first stage of what you can say Krishna conscious realization. Prabhupada called this aparoksha realizing. So it's a kind of anuman. In other words, it's kind of it's not mental speculation. Prabhupada made a difference between mental speculation, just he called random, haphazard imaginings of the mind, and what Prabhupada called philosophical speculation. So this is, stand up please. Please, you, stand up. Otherwise I'll go to sleep. Every time I see him, he's like this. So, why do we speculate? Because we're trying to understand the cause of something. Just a good example, again, that kitchen sound. That sound which... So, if I don't ask Chit Shakti to go see, then I may just sit here and speculate what happened. And, from that sound, well, it could be so many things. If we really want to explain it, it's reasonable, it's logical. Again, this is anuman, logic, mental logic. It's logical to assume that some devotee has dropped some pots and pans. So then we may want to understand who. So there might be some, Bhakta Pachfus or something. So, and we know that he's very clumsy. So we may speculate that it's him, but it may not be him. How do we know? That's a speculation. We may assume that it must be Bhakta Pachfus. Who else would drop the pots and pans everywhere? But it might be Bhaktin Enta, who knows? Or it might even be, a Yeti, an abominable snowman, just entered the kitchen from somewhere, It could be that too. Maybe an ostrich escaped from the Stockholm Zoo, came in through the front door, went into the kitchen. Could be so many things. Could have been a little earthquake that happened, a tremor that happened just in the kitchen and not here. A meteor could have come and smashed through the window in the kitchen and caused a big disturbance. So many things it might be. Once you start speculating, it can be anything. You see, that's the problem with mental speculation. There's no limit. And that, one person says, well, I think it was Bhakta Pachvus, and someone says, no, I think it was Bhaktin Enta. And someone else, no, I think it was the Yeti. And the fourth, no, I think it was an ostrich from the Stockholm Zoo. And this way, then you have different philosophies. And as long as we're in this room, then who can really say? They could all be right. You see. So this is the thing. We're all confined by our prajaksha, by our material perception. And when we start to speculate, there's no final proof of our speculations because we cannot go beyond prajaksha. So that's mental speculation. But philosophical speculation means thinking of the cause along the lines of Shastra. So, of course, this example we've just given, it's called technically laukika. It means ordinary. It means when someone drops some pots and pans, whoever it is, a bhakta or an ostrich or whatever. But that's a situation called laukika. It's just an ordinary, commonplace question. But the real question of causation is where from this world comes. Where did this material world come from? Not where did that sound in the kitchen come from. So that is the actual question of causation. Until we start to inquire into this is Vedanta. Therefore, Vedanta Sutra begins. Atato Brahma Jignasha Jannadyasya Yataha. We inquire into Brahman. What is Brahman? The source of everything. That is the question of Vedanta. The end of inquiry. So until we come to this point, then we're not actually advanced. We're not on the stage of realizing anything beyond mere material sense perception. But when one comes to the Shastric understanding of the cause of everything and can actually reason in this way, and this Prabhupada also called vichar. I mentioned there's achar, when you're following authority, then vichar means you're actually able to speculate in a right way. You see? Along the lines of Shastra. You can come to conclusions from your own thought process on the basis of Shastra, and it's a valid conclusion. A valid Krishna conscious conclusion. Philosophical speculation. So Srila Prabhupada said this is very important. He said we should all come to this platform. This should be the natural result of our reading Srila Prabhupada's books. To read and then be able to think in terms of Shastra, to understand what is happening around us in terms of Shastra. So this is aparoksha. So this is the beginning of direct realization of Krishna consciousness. Then, beyond that is adhoksaja. And that was mentioned here in the purport. So, again, adho-aksha. Adhoksaja is comprised of two words. And again, we hear this word aksha. It's another kind of perception. But adhoksaja. So, adho means pushed down. So it is a perception which pushes down, or you can say rejects, or does not require. Just like if someone wants to bring me something from the kitchen, say whoever dropped the pots and pans feels guilty. They've heard over the microphone. They feel guilty, so they want to pacify me, so they come running in here with, let's say they've made a big pizza in the meantime. So they come running here in the Bhagavatam class with a big pizza and they want me to take the pizza. And I say, no, go, take it out. So that's adho, that's rejection. I've rejected it. I don't need your pizza. Take it away. I might accept it, but this is the wrong situation. Not in the middle of Bhagavatam class. So I'm not dependent upon this pizza. I may accept it, but I don't have to. So Adhoksaja platform is actually a platform of Paramatma realization. On this platform, one does not require either anuman or pratyaksha. One does not require the speculations of the mind. One does not require the perception of the material senses. By the grace of Paramatma, because Paramatma realization actually includes that, because anuman and pratyaksha are only arranged by Paramatma. We're only able to think and to see because of Paramatma. So it's included. But adhoksaja means to understand these things from actually Lord Krishna's point of view, or Lord Vishnu's point of view. There's one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which says Krishna consciousness means to see this universe as Lord Vishnu sees it. So actually this is adhoksaja, or it's also called svatasiddha. Svatasiddha is a name of Paramatma. It has the meaning svata, means his own siddha, perfection. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks of svata siddha gyan, the position of fully realized knowledge from within the heart. So knowledge that is provided by Supersoul, by Paramatma. And that means in this stage one can actually see Ishvara. There's 5 truths of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada mentions Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. One can see the controller of all energies. Jiva, you can see the Jiva, the spirit soul. Prakriti, he can see the material nature as it is Krishna's energy. Kala, he can see the time factor at work. You see? Trikala Gyan, past, present, future. He can see this. And finally, karma. He can see how every living entity is in his position due to the law of karma. So he sees these things plainly. Not that, like now, the best we can do is this aparoksha. We remember statements of Shastra and then we apply them. We see someone suffering. We see some unfortunate person comes into Govinda's restaurant. And then we can think through the eyes of Shastra that, oh, this person must be sinful. Must have a sinful past because look, they're suffering like this. They're sick or they're crazy or whatever it is. They're impoverished. So this must be due to some sinful activity. But on the adhoksaja platform, it's self-evident. That's another way to understand it. Self-evident means when that person comes in, you see the sin. One can actually see the sins that were responsible for placing him in that position. Sees it directly. It's just revealed. That's another, revealed knowledge. Revealed knowledge. So then, well, that's obviously a very high level. This Prabhupada said is Krishna consciousness. This is on the platform of pure Krishna consciousness. But there is something higher. Interestingly enough, there's something even higher than adhoksaja, and that is called aprakrita. So aprakrita means obviously not material. There's no connection with the material nature of this material universe. This material universe is the domain of Prakriti, and that is one of the tattvas that one sees at the adhoksaja platform, Ishvara Jiva Prakriti, Kala Karma. But then there is a higher platform called Aprakrita, which is seeing Krishna's transcendental pastimes. The Aprakrita means, yes, no Prakriti in the sense of no material energy. But there's Daivi Prakriti, divine Prakriti, Srimati Radharani. So when one is on this level of perception, that is the highest level, prema bhava level of perception, to actually see how Krishna is enjoying his Daivi Prakriti, his divine energy, Srimati Radharani, in Goloka Vrindavan. So, Lord Shiva is explaining here that he is always on the platform of Vasudeva Sattva. That means adhoksaja platform. Vasudeva is the name of Super Soul. So he is always on this Vasudeva platform of perception, in which the Lord is apavrita. The Lord and his energies are always revealed. I'll stop here.